It only takes one look at the legendary Spartacus' chiseled face to realize he was no ordinary old Hollywood star. Douglas brought an intensity to the screen that no one else could match. But before taking his last breath, he made one final, merciless reveal. He didn't want peace. He wanted truth. He left behind a list, a ruthless breakdown of the 7 worst lovers he'd ever known. These weren't random ladies. They were icons, flawless, worshipped like goddesses. But once the makeup faded and the bedroom door shut, Kirk found no goddesses. He found only women without heart or heat, just statues going through motions they never cared to feel. Chapter 7. Lana Turner. This first name on Kirk Douglas's blacklist brought a feeling that you can't explain with words. It is a kind of strange emptiness you get when something beautiful turns out to be hollow. Lana wasn't a disaster in the way people expect. She didn't say anything cruel. She didn't do anything shocking. But something about the whole experience stayed with Kirk, and not for the right reasons. It was during the filming of The Bad and the Beautiful in 1952. They looked perfect together on screen. The posters sold chemistry, heat, and connection. And the public believed it. So did Kirk, for a while. Off camera, Lana kept the same face, same lashes, same lipstick, always camera ready, even in private. When Kirk went to her room one night expecting some glimpse of the real woman beneath the studio polish, he found her at the vanity, adding more makeup, not removing it. She turned to greet him with that cute smile, but it wasn't a greeting. It was a pose. They got into bed, eventually, but even that didn't feel like love. Her lips stayed still. Her body didn't shift. She didn't look at him. She watched herself in the mirror. Every movement felt like it had been rehearsed for some invisible audience. At one point, Kirk ran his hand through her hair gently. She pulled back as it burned. "Don't touch that," she said. "It'll lose shape." And that was the moment he stopped trying. She wasn't mean or cold. She just didn't know how or when to stop performing, even when she was alone, even when someone wanted to see her. Afterwards, she didn't stay beside him. She got up quickly, checked her face in the mirror, adjusted her lipstick, and said, without looking back, "Can you close the door? The air dries my skin." Kirk got dressed, walked out, and didn't say a single word. Well, because there was nothing to say. Lana Turner wasn't there to be close to anyone. She was there to stay perfect. Chapter 6. Marlene Dietrich. Well, Marlene's film titles say it all. Blonde Venus, The Scarlet Empress, and perhaps most famously, The Devil is a Woman. Dietrich crafted an image so alluring that men practically lined up to be destroyed by it. That face, that voice. The cigarette smoke curled as she tilted her chin. She was old Hollywood's danger wrapped in silk. But Kirk Douglas met someone else entirely. The first shock came when he showed up at her apartment expecting seduction and found himself standing in the middle of a kitchen. Marlene, apron tied tight, ladle in hand, was hovering over a pot of beef stew. No perfume, no lace, just soup and concern. She looked him over with a frown and said, "You look pale. Sit down. You need protein." He thought it was an act, but it was not. It was a slow burn before the fire. But the bedroom didn't offer relief. It felt more like bedtime at a convalescent home. She tucked him in like a nurse, fussed over his pillow, and kept adjusting the blankets. The kisses were soft. We mean too soft. Her touch had no hunger, just habit. And just when Kirk thought the mood might turn, she disappeared. Minutes later, she returned with a tray. A full bowl of steaming stew. She sat beside him, blowing gently on the spoon like a mother feeding a sick child. He didn't know whether to laugh or cry. In that moment, Kirk understood. Marlene didn't want a man in her bed. She wanted a boy to care for, feed, and tuck in. Romance wasn't her thrill. It was caretaking. The passion she showed on screen didn't live in her bedroom. It lived in her kitchen. He left that night full, but not in the way he hoped. Her soup warmed his body, sure, but his ego stayed cold. Well, love can come in all moods. Number 5. Joan Crawford. If Lana Turner felt like a mannequin in lipstick, Joan felt like walking into a glass museum where you weren't allowed to breathe. She wasn't seductive or wild. She was spotless, stiff, and sealed in plastic. Kirk still remembered the night. It was 1950, and Joan was already a towering name in Hollywood. He expected heat, silk sheets, that famous voice whispering something unrepeatable. Instead, when the front door opened, he was greeted by the sharp sting of disinfectant, not perfume or flowers. It was the smell of bleach and ammonia, like someone had just scrubbed the soul out of the house. Inside, every single surface, from the velvet chairs to the lampshades, was shrink-wrapped in clear vinyl. The whole place looked like it was waiting for a flood. Kirk sat down. The sofa crackled like a plastic bag, and whatever excitement he'd brought with him started to evaporate. Joan entered like a head mistress, posture perfect, eyes sharp. She didn't flirt. She inspected. She asked him questions like she was conducting an interview, eyes darting occasionally to his shoes, worried they might touch the carpet. Still, Kirk kept hope. Well, maybe she needed time. Maybe behind the rigid posture was something real. Upstairs, the coldness didn't let up. Even in the bedroom, everything felt staged. Sheets tucked too tightly, air too clean. Joan lay down, barely moving, as if bracing for impact. Kirk tried to stir some warmth, some spark, but her body didn't respond. Her eyes drifted. Her touch was mechanical, and the silence between them grew heavier by the second. When it was over, she rose quickly, adjusted her robe, and looked at him like he was a misplaced item. "Don't let your feet touch the white carpet. I just had it cleaned." That line did it. He dressed quickly, left faster, and gulped in the night air like it was the first real thing he'd felt all evening. Joan Crawford, the queen of the screen, had given him nothing but silence, plastic, and a memory he never wanted to revisit. Chapter 4. Faye Dunaway. Something about Faye Dunaway exhausted Kirk Douglas before anything even happened. By 1969, Hollywood was changing, and so were the women it crowned. Faye wasn't built on warmth or mystery. She was built on edges. Fresh from Bonnie and Clyde, she carried herself like a live wire, always vibrating, always bristling, as if silence itself offended her. Kirk had mistaken that intensity for hidden fire. He imagined a night that might finally quiet the noise of a long shooting day. Instead, he walked into a hotel room that felt like a storm shelter for unfinished emotions. Scripts littered the floor. Ashtrays overflowed. Cigarette smoke hung low and bitter. Faye didn't greet him so much as continue whatever argument was already raging inside her. Even when they moved toward each other, she never softened. Her mouth tasted of tension. Her hands clutched and scratched, not with hunger, but with agitation. Very quickly, Kirk knew this wasn't a desire being released. It was pressure. She seemed incapable of letting pleasure exist without interrogation. She stopped him mid-moment to ask what he felt, why he felt it, whether it was real, whether he was performing, whether she was. Questions replaced touch. Analysis replaced instinct. At one point, she pulled away entirely, staring at him as if he were a problem she couldn't solve, accusing him of shallowness for wanting something simple. Then came tears, then bitterness, then a cigarette and a long speech about loneliness, suffering, and what it meant to be an artist. Kirk lay there feeling like a piece of furniture brought in to support her monologue. He dressed while she talked, watching a woman who seemed to feed on unrest the way others fed on affection. When he left, the hallway air felt like escape. Faye didn't want closeness. She wanted conflict, and Kirk knew he would never make a good future. Chapter 3. Jean Tierney. Something about Jean unsettled Kirk in a way the others hadn't. Joan Crawford made him tense, Lana Turner made him bored, Marlene made him feel small, but Jean made him uneasy. The kind of unease that creeps in quietly, without noise, and lingers long after the room goes dark. In 1947, Jean Tierney was spoken about as a miracle. Her face had a stillness painters spent lifetimes chasing. Those green eyes didn't just draw attention, they held it. Kirk fell for that beauty fast. He believed he was stepping toward a woman who could swallow a room whole. Her apartment that night was quiet. Not a romantic quiet, empty quiet. Streetlights slipped through the curtains in pale strips. A clock ticked somewhere distant. Jean greeted him gently, her smile soft, her posture relaxed. She looked at him, but not quite at him. Her gaze didn't settle. It drifted, as if he were standing in the way of something she was really watching. When they lay together, she didn't resist him. She didn't stiffen. She didn't guide. She allowed. That was the problem. Her body responded in the most basic ways, but nothing followed. Her mouth didn't answer his. Her breathing didn't change. Her hands rested where they landed and stayed there. What troubled him most were her eyes. They never closed. They stared upward, unfocused, occasionally shifting toward the lamp or the ceiling, as though she were lying alone, thinking about something far removed from the room. Kirk tried speaking her name, tried pulling her back with a touch, with a word, with warmth. She blinked slowly, turned her head, smiled faintly, and asked if he thought it might rain tomorrow. She mentioned the flowers on her balcony. The words cut through him. In that moment, he understood he wasn't sharing a bed with a woman. He was sharing space with someone who had already gone somewhere he couldn't reach. Her body was warm. Her presence was not. He sat up, confused, unsettled, and strangely lonely. Jean remained where she was, fingers tracing the blanket, eyes drifting back to the ceiling, as though nothing unusual had happened at all. Kirk left without anger, without accusation. He didn't yet know the pain Jean carried, the tragedies that had hollowed her from the inside. All he knew was the fear of lying next to someone beautiful who felt impossibly far away. Chapter 2. Rita Hayworth. Rita broke Kirk in a way none of the others did, because she didn't push, control, or drain him. She disappeared. In the 1950s, she was the dream of every man alive. Gilda, fire in red hair, confidence carved into every movement. Kirk arrived believing he was about to meet that woman. What opened the door instead was Margarita Cancino, her shoulders drawn inward, her eyes avoiding his, as if his presence were something she needed to survive rather than welcome. The room felt tense, not seductive. The first thing she did was reach for the lights and switch them off. All of them. She wanted darkness, complete darkness. She didn't want to be seen. When Kirk touched her, she trembled, not with anticipation, but with nerves. Her skin was damp, her breathing shallow. She whispered apologies for things he hadn't accused her of. She asked him not to look, not to judge, not to leave. Every movement felt like something she endured rather than chose. She hid beneath the covers even while undressed, gripping the sheets as if they were protection. Instead of desire, Kirk felt responsibility settle onto his chest. Instead of hunger, he felt caution. She kept asking whether he was disappointed, whether she was ugly, and whether he would hate her in the morning. Each question drained the room of heat. He tried to comfort her, but comfort was all that remained. There was no space left for wanting. No room for heat, only fragility. Lying beside her in that thick darkness, Kirk realized lust cannot live where fear controls every breath. He dressed quietly. Rita never looked up. She didn't ask him to stay. She only wanted the moment over. Kirk walked out heavy, not angry. Rita Hayworth could set the world on fire from the screen. In a bedroom, she could barely keep herself from shaking. Chapter 1. Lauren Bacall. Lauren should have been different. Kirk had known her before Hollywood reshaped them both. Back when they were broke students in New York, sharing cigarettes, meals, and impossible dreams. He admired her then. The confidence, the stare. The way she spoke was like she didn't need anyone's approval. Years later, when success finally put them in the same city again, Kirk believed the timing had simply been wrong before. He expected warmth. Familiarity softened into something else. Her room told him otherwise. Thick smoke hung in the air, leather, whiskey. Lauren greeted him in an oversized shirt, drink already poured, voice low and blunt. She didn't invite him in, she told him to come in. From the start, the mood felt off, the kind of wrong you can't fix by moving closer. When they finally came together, Kirk realized quickly that tenderness wasn't in the room. Lauren didn't ease into anything. She moved with the certainty of someone used to command, not surrender. Her kisses were firm, her hands are decisive. There was strength there, real strength, but no softness around it. She spoke constantly. When Kirk tried to slow things down, tried to bring something gentler into it, she smirked and told him to stop acting, to quit pretending it was something it wasn't. That sentence stripped the air out of him. She knew him too well, knew the boy he'd been, the hunger, the doubt. There was no mystery left for desire to work with. Lying beside Lauren felt like lying beside a sparring partner. There was nothing to sink into, no place to rest. When it ended, she didn't curl closer. She reached for another cigarette, another drink, and started talking about politics, scripts, and people they both knew, the same way she would have with Bogart or any other man at the table. Kirk dressed quietly, suddenly exhausted. Lauren was magnetic, but in bed, she wasn't a lover. She was a comrade, and for Kirk, that was the one thing desire could never survive. If you have found this video interesting, be sure to like and subscribe. Take care. We'll see you soon.